I feel very privileged to have been invited here this evening, and can I say immediately that one of the most important things that I've discovered, whether you're heading a committee or whether you're simply a practitioner, one of the indispensable things is that you must have a sense of humour. And that is terribly, terribly important. Can I just give you some illustrations of that? Just quoting 6 or 7 cases by way of example. And yeah, that's fine. Okay. And as I was saying, the quality that is essential to the bar and to Jewish life generally is a sense of humour. And to cite one example, if you advertised for a mother, you know how the ad would read: wanted a woman to cook and sew, to clean house, wash clothes, and do all the odd jobs in between. Must be at home with illness, adversity, and crises of all kinds. No salary, no vacation, no chance for advancement. Now you know why nobody would answer an ad like that. That's why God invented mothers. The story is told of a little girl in a German school who told her teacher that the cat had just given birth to 5 kittens, very beautiful kittens, and they were all, she said, darling little Nazis. A month later, an official of the Nazi propaganda ministry visited the school, and the teacher asked the little girl to repeat her story. Yes, Herr Inspector, she said, my cat gave birth to 5 beautiful kittens, and they were all darling little social democrats. What? Shouted the teacher. I thought you told me that they were darling little Nazis. Oh, yes, they were, said the little girl, but that was 4 weeks ago. Then their eyes are now open, you see. A judge addressed the prisoner at the bar, saying, Seamus O'Reilly, you are charged with a crime of theft. How do you plead? Are you guilty or not guilty? O'Reilly said, I don't know, my lord. I haven't heard the evidence yet. A speech need not be long to be good, and indeed the shorter the better. In old times, when there was still capital punishment in this country, the shortest and most effective speech ever made in a murder trial was in its entirety as follows. Gentlemen of the jury, if you convict my client, she will be taken from here to a cold, damp cell in prison. There all of her lovely blonde hair will be shaved off, and she will be hanged by the neck until she is dead. But gentlemen of the jury, if you acquit her, she will return to her luxurious apartment, the telephone number of which is Mayfair 1234. Mrs. Christensen lived near an army base. She always felt sorry for the soldiers who were around there. They were so friendless and so far away from home. So one year, she decided to invite some enlisted men to join her family for a celebration dinner. She called the company sergeant and asked him to send 3 soldiers over for dinner the following day. "Thank you, ma'am," said the sergeant. "Oh, that's all right," said Mrs. Christensen. "But, Sergeant, I almost forgot. Please, I do not wish any soldiers of the Jewish faith." "I understand, ma'am," said the sergeant. On Thursday, Mrs. Christensen prepared a fine traditional turkey dinner with all the trimmings. Promptly at 6 o'clock, the family answered the doorbell to greet 3 dinner guests. 3 black soldiers stood in the doorway. Mrs. Christensen was aghast, but she said, "Your sergeant must have made a mistake." "No, ma'am," cried one of the soldiers. "Sergeant Greenstein never makes mistakes." An Israeli bus driver and a pious rabbi died on the same day. They were brought before the heavenly tribunal, and the bus driver was immediately admitted to heaven. The rabbi was told to wait. His case must be examined more carefully. The rabbi was outraged. "I know for a fact the bus driver was a totally irreligious Jew, whereas I gave a shiur in Talmud every day." "That's all very well," the heavenly angels told him, "but when you taught Talmud, you caused many people to go to sleep. When that taxi driver drove his bus, everybody prayed." Now, dealing first of all with my career at the bar, I qualified as a barrister in South Africa. I came here to get married. I stayed on and did the bar exams and a Master of Law at King's College, London. I was admitted to chambers by the late Maurice Finer, an expert in company law, and later on a judge of the High Court. And he was prompted to do so by Derry Irvine, who later became the Lord Chancellor. After a split in our chambers, our new head became Derry Irvine, and he became in 1967 the Lord Chancellor. 97? Yes. Yes. He became the Lord Chancellor. I was admitted into chambers as a junior barrister in 1970. I was appointed to Queen's Counsel in 1982, the youngest and the most junior person in the Silks list of that year. I should perhaps briefly speak of the difference between a QC and a junior barrister. A QC can sit in front of a row of benches facing the judge during court. A junior can't. A QC leads in all cases in which he is briefed. A QC's court dress is more formal than that of a junior. A QC is legal advisor to clients and solicitors in his case. He decides whether the lay client has a case worth presenting in court. If he decides not, he will try to settle the case on the best terms he can negotiate. A QC normally tells the junior what he has to research in preparation for the court case. All barristers at the outset of their career have to decide in which branch of the law they wish to practice, whether criminal law or civil law, and if the latter, whether in the general common law, for example, contract and tort, whether in employment law, administrative law, negligence, taxation, public law, or planning law. If you want to specialise in chancery law, you must also decide in which areas you wish to practice. For example, whether land law, trusts, wills, etc. When I first started at the bar, the only available court work was criminal law, which I practiced for about 4 years. I was sent off to magistrates' courts all round London for my first 4 years in practice. It had one or two advantages. You rapidly learned how to deal with magistrates, who were in a hurry to get through their list of cases and regarded the barrister as a long-winded source of interruption of their work. You would soon learn that you had to make your submissions briefly and to the point. If you were brief and to the point, they would at least listen to you. Whether you succeeded in your submissions was largely a matter of luck or good fortune. I was very relieved when my clerks decided that I would be transferred to civil work and act as a junior for Derry Irvine. I worked all hours for Derry Irvine and myself in my new field of employment law, which had just been introduced as a new area of law in 1972. Jenny, my wife, used to do my typing because no typist could ever read my handwriting. This was in the days before computers were introduced. She, poor girl, had to type into the early hours of the morning many mornings. I rapidly progressed in this new area of law, and my practice increased in size and in volume. Pupils, both male and female, used to carry heavy bags of books to court. The books were always crammed with authorities that I wished to cite to the court, and were extremely heavy. The girl pupils always managed to carry the bags to court. How they did it is a minor miracle. Life became so hectic that on occasions I had to take requests for advice away on holiday. These were requests for advice which I had failed to complete during the term. Poor Jenny, a very long-suffering wife, contracted mumps when we were on holiday, but still had to continue typing my opinions. The children were sent in the afternoon to dispatch my opinions to London. They also went to the supermarket to do the shopping in the afternoon. When I was appointed to Silk in 1982, I continued to work extremely hard, and I expected my juniors to work hard too. On one occasion, I was leading a junior in a long case in Scotland. We were staying in an hotel. My junior's room was a few doors away from mine, and we would both work late in the evening. I would then push the work that I had done under my junior's door and then go to bed to get a few hours sleep. My junior had no such luck. He considered what I had done and then added his own comments to the work, and then pushed his comments under my door. We're now talking about the early hours of the morning. I then revised the documents and pushed them back under his door with a note of what I would like him to do to prepare for that morning in court. Over the years, and particularly during the 1970s, 80s and 90s, I acquired a high reputation as an expert in employment law. Incidentally, the junior who had accompanied me in Scotland was made a silk a few years later and is now a very successful leader in this area of work. I got silk, as I say, in 1982 and had the distinction of appearing at the bottom of the list of silks because I was the youngest silk in the new list of silks. I was fortunate to do my cases in silk until I retired in December of 2008. Now, that'll do for an introduction to my work at the bar. Can I make a few general points about life at the bar? Whichever area of the law you practice or specialize in, certain requirements were and are still essential. You have to have a good working knowledge of the law which you are advising on for the purpose of accurately presenting the law to the court. You can't properly advise a client of his prospects if you don't know the law in the relevant area. You can't give an opinion or indeed argue a case without forming a view on the strengths and weaknesses of your client's case. Nor can you form a view on the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent's case. The law has to be well researched for any case, whether in the county court, the employment tribunal, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and in particular for the House of Lords. You must have a good knowledge of which facts you are asking a court to find. You can't make a reliable assessment of your prospects, all of your opponent's prospects, without a knowledge of all the facts. You can't direct your examination in chief to your stronger points or direct your attention to the weaker points of your opponent. Your presentation of your cases must be as convincing as you can legitimately be. This leads me to the next point. If you wish to acquire a good reputation in any area of the law, you must always demonstrate absolute integrity. The court must know and must trust you. No one should be able to say that you have misled the court or have not called the attention of the court to certain relevant facts or cases. A court has to have all the facts before it and be properly informed of the law which they need to decide the case. Barristers who conceal or misrepresent the law or the facts quickly acquire a reputation for shiftiness and run the risk of disciplinary action by the Bar Council. Central to a set of chambers is a good clerk's room. Clerks have initial contact with solicitors. In my chambers we were very fortunate to have as our clerk Philip Monham, a man with an impeccable reputation and an exemplary model for any junior clerk to follow. A young barrister looking for a seat in chambers must impress the clerks as well as the members of chambers. A solicitor often talks to the clerk about the barrister's knowledge and about his performance in court and in conference. If your performance is continually criticised by solicitors, you will not get their work, and deservedly so. For a seat in chambers, the barrister has to convince both the members of chambers and the clerk's room that he deserves it. One of the advantages of the bar is that a barrister can discuss any difficult point in a case with a more senior member of chambers and seek his advice. But whatever the advice he receives, the young barrister must always remember that he is fixed with a total responsibility for his actions and the manner in which he conducts a particular case. Every member of chambers, apart from members of first or second year of practice, contribute to the chamber's expenses in proportion to their earnings. A barrister allocated a case must do it well. If he makes a mess of the case, it's his sole responsibility, and he will be very unlikely to be briefed again. If there is evidence of incompetence or misrepresentation in any case, either his own solicitors or the other side's barrister can approach his head of chambers and complain about his conduct of the particular case. The matter may then proceed to disciplinary action where it is believed that this is warranted. Similarly, if a clerk acts contrary to the rules of the bar, he can be reported to the head of chambers, who has the power to dismiss him. The essence of the bar is that you are expected to work with a high level of skill and always with integrity. When it operates well and efficiently, the bar provides the highest level of knowledge and skill in preparing and presenting a case. This is one of the important qualities which the bar seeks when a barrister applies for silk, and even more importantly, when he applies to be made a High Court judge. To be a barrister is to be a member of a highly organised profession with high ethical rules and with formidable skills. The bar is a highly honourable profession which insists on high ethics and high standards of skill and proficiency. The challenge to a young barrister is that as he becomes more senior, so must his skills increase. As you progress in this profession, it will make a high demand not only of time, but of the skill and ability which you can display. The bar is one of the most demanding professions of all. Its standards are always high, and barristers who lack the necessary skills will not go far in this profession. For those who are eager to do well and prepare to work extremely hard, the bar is a demanding profession, but you can take pride in the quality of your performance in and out of court, and that is its own reward, as well as the increasing fees which you will get. Can I now go on to the Board of Deputies of British Jews? The Board of Deputies represents the views of the Jewish community on all political and public matters that require a communal response. It is now over 250 years old. It consists of representatives from all the synagogue groupings and from other organisations of Jews in this country, whether Orthodox, Masorti, Reform or Liberal. The whole community, with the exception of the Federation of Synagogues, which left the board in 1936 when the Reform movement joined the Board of Deputies. The board elects a president and originally 2 vice presidents, later 3 vice presidents, and a treasurer every 3 years. The principal and senior committee of the board is the Executive Committee, which is comprised of 5 honorary officers, and in addition, each honorary officer has a vice chairman who is elected by each division of the board. There are, in addition, past presidents of the board who are invited to all executive meetings. I had been a member of the board for about 6 years when I was elected president of the board in 1994. I continued for 2 terms until 2000. 2 terms of 3 years each is now the maximum term that a president and his honorary officer may serve in that capacity. Since I took office, the board has been organised in 4 divisions. Each division is headed by a vice president or the treasurer. Before I took office, the board was very disorganised. There were no divisions, and if you were interested in a particular aspect of the board's work, you could simply form your own committee. There were, I think, at least 10 committees at the time I took office. The pre-existing committee structure was calculated to produce confusion, disorganisation and inefficiency. The primary task of myself and my honorary officers was to reorganise the existing board structure. We commissioned a report from an expert on political structures, and he recommended that the board be divided into 4 divisions. His report was accepted by the General Assembly, which comprises all members of the board and is the supreme deciding body. The 4 divisions were the Community Division, the International Division, the Defence Division, and the Finance and Administrative Division. These divisions are not in any way self-contained, because issues may arise with one division which also affect the work of another division, and therefore there will be a case where different divisions have to share a particular problem. The new divisional system had a beneficial effect on the board and introduced a simpler but more effective system in place of the haphazard system that had previously existed. The divisions now each report to the Board of Deputies General Meeting 2 or 3 times each year. The Communal Division deals with all matters affecting the community within the United Kingdom itself. It is concerned with all matters which may affect the rights and liberties of the Jewish community within the United Kingdom. The International Division deals with all matters that affect the Jewish community outside the United Kingdom. This includes matters within Israel, America and Europe. The board is represented on the European Jewish Congress, of which I was president for about 2 years, and which is based in Paris and has a staff and an office there. It also deals with matters affecting Jews in South America and elsewhere in the world, including Australia and South Africa. It also has a relationship with the Jews of Russia. The Financial and Administrative Division deals with the finances of the Board of Deputies, what the board can afford to undertake, what it cannot financially risk. Any organisation within the Board of Deputies contributes a certain level of funds to the board. This division also deals with staff recruitment and appointment of officers to the board. The Defence Division is perhaps the most interesting division of all, because this deals with all matters which affect or may affect the welfare and standing of the British Jewish community. It deals, for example, with a tax on kashrut, Brit Milah, scheduling of the dates for university and school examinations,